Okay, here we go. Algebra 1, solving one-step equations. Right, solving equations, we're here. This is like the crux of algebra. So this is a really important unit for us, so make sure that this is making sense. If it does not make sense, make sure you do a Google Meet with me because we're only going to be building on this from here on out and working on more and more complex equations. All right, so but we're starting right now with just one-step equations. All right, so let's just dive right in here. So we've got to solve equations. We will be using inverse operations to undo the operation or operations performed on the variable. All right, so what does that mean? Let's just take the equation x over 6 plus 2 is equal to 4. Okay, so this, we have to look at what is being done to the variable. The variable, being x, is being divided by 6, and then we add 2. All right, so that is what I mean by undoing the operations. So the operations are being performed on the variable would be division and addition, right? And then we have inverse operations or opposite operations. You can call them opposite operations as well, right? The inverse operation of addition is subtraction. The inverse operation of subtraction is addition. The inverse operation of multiplication is division. And lastly, the inverse operation of division is multiplication. All right, you guys probably already know that. So let's just kind of put this into practice. All right, so we've got our 4 properties of equality. We've got the addition, subtraction, multiplication, and division properties of equality. So let's start with addition. So it says it is possible to add an equal quantity to both sides of an equation. So let's look at the equation x minus 2 is equal to 4. Okay, so this property is saying as long as we add on both sides, right, if we do the same thing to both sides of the equation, we are going to get an equivalent equation, right? Negative 2 plus 2, that cancels out, that's 0. So we just drop down this x, we get x is equal to 4 plus 2 is 6. Okay? And the beauty of equations, we can always look back to the original problem. X minus 2 is equal to 4. Does this check out? 6 minus 2 equals 4. Is that true? 6 minus 2 equals 4? It sure does. So that checks out. So really there's no reason why we should ever miss these problems because we can always go back in and check our answers. Okay? All right, the subtraction property of equality is stating that it is possible to subtract an equal quantity from both sides of an equation. All right, so let's look at what x plus 3 is equal to 7. Okay, so I can subtract on both sides as long as it is the same quantity. So basically, you've probably heard this before. You do it to one side of the equal sign, you have to do it to the other side. Okay, and that's a statement that you're going to want to remind yourself throughout this unit and the next, and probably the next few subsequent units. Okay, if you do something to one side of the equal sign, you have to do it to the other side. All right, 7 minus 3 is 4. And again, we can plug that back into our original equation. We just figure out x was equal to 4. 4 plus 3, does that equal 7? Sure does. We're good to go. All right, the multiplication property of equality. It is possible to multiply by a quantity to both sides of an equation. All right, so this one here, let's look at x over 4 is equal to 2. Okay, so we can multiply on both sides of an equality and get an equivalent equation. So if we multiply by 4, and this is probably the one that is most confusing to students, but if we multiply by 4, this will cancel out, and you'll be just left with x. And if you're not sure on that, like if we put this as a fraction, x over 4, and we multiply it by 4, the whole number 4 written as a fraction, right? We can write all whole numbers over 1. Okay, and if I were to multiply this out, rather than just cross-canceling like I did up here, if I multiply this out, this is 4x, right? 4 times x is 4x, and 1 times 4 is 4, okay? So now we have the 4 over 4, and that, anything over itself equals 1, and so you're left with just 1x. But hopefully, we're at the point where we recognize that anytime we're multiplying by something in the denominator, it's going to cancel it out. And if you're not there yet, that's okay. I promise we will get there, and you'll be very confident with that in a couple of weeks. Okay? All right, getting back to this problem. If I multiply by 4 on the one side, I have to do it to the other side. All right, so this side canceled out. I'm just left with x, and 2 times 4 is 8. And again, let's plug this back in, see if it works out. 8 over 4 is equal to 2. 8 divided by 4, does that equal 2? It sure does. It checks out. We're good to go. Okay. Last one here, the division property of equality is saying it is possible to divide by an equal quantity on both sides of an equation, and you'll get an equivalent equation. So let's look at 5 times x is equal to 10. So if we divide by 5, we're going to be left with 1x on this side. 10 divided by 5 is 2. And again, we can plug this back in. 5 times 2. Make sure you put that in parentheses to remind yourself this is multiplication. So 5 times 2, that's 10. Does that check out? Sure does. And we're good to go. Okay, that's all I've got for notes on this section. You guys can give practice problems 1 through 10 a shot. And again, if you're struggling with this, if this wasn't making sense to you, please come see me on my Google Meet and I can help you out. All right, good luck.